Hi, Nagulan.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
Thanks for joining me. I'm good, and it's a very strange time difference between us.
It
11 and
is.
a half hours.
That's
Where,
right.
where does the half hour come in?
I don't know. Actually, I think back when all these time zones started, I think there was a feeling with the government that we didn't want to be on the same time zones as some of our neighboring countries, and so
Uh-huh.
we've switched half
So it's
an
a
hour.
half hour. Okay.
Um, but it's very confusing. I think there's only three countries in the world that have this
The
thing, and
half
it's
hour. Okay.
difficult. It's already difficult, and then the half an hour makes it even more difficult. So
I bet you're really
anyway,
I bet you're really good at math with all with all of the Zoom calls you have to do.
I have several devices. My computer is on US time, my phone is on Sri Lanka time, and then I have another device on where my mother lives on London time. So
Uh-huh.
uh,
Oh my gosh.
that way it's easy to track. But anyway,
Well,
yeah,
it's fun to see. I'm just going to show outside my window so people can see that it
yeah,
is indeed nighttime here, and we can see the sun streaming through your window
right,
there.
yeah.
So, what part of Sri Lanka do you live in?
So I'm in just a suburb of Colombo, which is the capital city,
Hmm.
semi-urban, residential area. But I am maybe a 30-minute drive to the cathedral, which is where my desk is, and about 10 minutes from my church. So it's just a suburb of the capital city, Colombo.
Okay, great. I didn't realize you had an office at the cathedral.
Yeah, no. So when I moved back from New York in
Mm.
2011, I work from home some of the time when I have to work on New York hours, and then I also have a desk at the diocesan office, so that I have some community that I'm a part of, not always working alone. So yeah.
So Nagulan and I met in South Sudan when I was living there and working for the Archbishop. And Nagulan still works for Episcopal Relief and Development, and was were you the country regional rep at that point? Do you still have the
No,
same?
I'm not sure what I was back then. I think that we were sort of structured regionally. So we had an Asia person, an Africa person, a Latin America person, and then we moved into sort of thematic areas. And I think I was South Sudan came under the sort of disaster, post-disaster theme, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was when South Sudan was added to my portfolio, and then I got to meet you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's your church usually like there in your community, and what's it like now?
Yeah, so sorry.
Or just your experience of kind of living out your faith practices.
Sure, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, church before the lockdown used to be, say, basically a full morning affair on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have our worship, we would have our service, and then my daughter's Sunday school, and then we had an adult forum. So it used to be the whole morning from 7:30 until around noonish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's still sort of that same time period, but I do a bit more. So I still participate in my parish service, which we do online, and then we still have a Zoom adult forum, a dialogue that happens, and then I also spend some of that time dipping in and out of several other live stream services across the world. So I like the music in some churches and then the sermons from other priests and theologians. So I still spend that time doing other things, but it's all done in front of a computer and it's all done in pajamas.
That's great. So in the work that you do, being in touch with other churches throughout East Africa and other places, have you been able to check out, are any of them doing live services that you've been able to participate into?
Yeah, I think there are several cathedrals in across Africa. I know South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania does it, and so there are several cathedrals that do online services. It's not always live streamed, but it may be recorded and then premiered on YouTube. So I listened to some of that. There's lots of individual priests who do sort of theological clips, 2-minute reflections that also appear on my Facebook feed that I like listening to. And then there's lots of others across the region and the world that do similar things.
Mm-hmm.
I've also had, I think one of the benefits of this time is I've had a new practice really to be part of several Bible studies. I have one with colleagues at work across different countries, one with family members, and now we have one at our own church. All of it is on Zoom.
Wow.
A lot of it's with different people from different countries, and I don't think I would have had the discipline or the time or the mental space really to be able to do this pre-lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so but even if it is short term, while we have this lockdown in place, and I hope it won't be short term, but
Mm-hmm.
even if it is short term, I think um, as long as travel is suspended, I hope I find that time enriching. I do find it very enriching, and so that's been something that I've particularly enjoyed in this lockdown period.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I guess, even with my own parish community,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've gotten closer to it.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-COVID, I traveled a lot considerably with Episcopal Relief and Development. And when I didn't travel and I missed Sundays, I would come back, but I would need a few days of rest. And so my attendance on Sundays was always kind of spotty.
Mm-hmm.
But post-COVID, I haven't missed a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I've been involved in some of the preparations for online services and church events. And so I think my bonds with the church community has also grown. And so all that's been a positive.
Mm-hmm. How are church members keeping in touch with each other at your church?
So we have these things. We have our online services. We have these adult forums. We have a Sunday school. We have some of the elder groups that meet. The youth fellowship does a Bible study. But we also have a lay leader ministry, which is sort of
Mm-hmm.
pre-COVID. It was, we had a group of people who would visit several people within their areas, within a geographic parish area, and just to stay connected. And so that is continuing on the phone and on WhatsApp in different ways. And so we still maintain that connection, feed back information that is heard to parish leadership, church leadership, and then whatever needs are then met.
What kind of response are people having just in your wider community to the lockdown? Is there a lot of anxiety and like, for instance, here we have a lot of unemployment. Our unemployment's rising, and our need for food banks and whatnot has more than, I think it's 5 times the number of people. And the thing, is it similar where you are, or
Yeah, I think those concerns are still very valid. We are maybe on week 9 or week 10 of curfew. So a curfew is, I think, a little bit more restricted than a lockdown. It has a little bit more restrictions than a shelter in place. That's, I guess, most common in the U.S. and in Napa. I think we have about 500 active cases. We have 9 people that have died in the country,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't look like we have peaked yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is there's still some fear and uncertainty with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the world, there is a sort of a delicate struggle between prioritizing public health concerns and prioritizing economic and livelihood concerns. So that struggle is very prevalent here because people, I think 70%, I could be, 70% of our workforce is a daily wage earner.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't go to work for that day, they don't make money for that day. And so now week 9, For 9 weeks, people have not been making their daily wage. And so that is a very big concern. We have a socialist government, and so there is a very strong welfare system, and it's working in some places and it's not working in other places. And so that we are this week gradually easing some of those lockdown curfew restrictions,
Mhm.
and we'll see how that impacts how the needs change with that.
Uh-huh.
Um, I personally, at least our family personally, we are lucky enough to be able to work from home. I'm lucky that my daughter's school has online learning, and we are lucky enough to be able to have licensed street vendors who come by our road several times a day to sell food and food supplies.
Mm.
Um, and so we personally are okay, but there are lots of concerns. And of course, I think none of our family members could have gotten through this crisis without our dog. Having a dog helps.
Yeah.
Having a dog is particularly very helpful. He is very happy with us being at home, and we are very
Uh-huh.
happy. He
Uh-huh.
is
And there
constant.
was a news article in the U.S. where a dog sprained its tail from wagging too much because it was it was so happy about its
Oh,
owners
goodness,
being
yeah,
home.
yeah. I mean, there's a consistent level of they're very consistent in their mood and in their happiness level, and that always keeps us and happy. And
That's,
my wife and I are introverts, so I think in this lockdown, the introverts are happy,
uh-huh.
and content, and the extroverts, like my daughter, who likes company, are not as happy.
Uh-huh.
So she's finding it much harder than we are. But
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
we have ways to connect with people online.
That's great. It's interesting. We're doing a daily prayer service at
Mm,
our church too, and I've talked to some folks who say, "Wow, I have the opportunity to go to church every single day, and that's never happened for me in my life before. This is more church than I've ever had." And at least for me, it's really that's also been really centering.
mm,
Grounds my day and in that moment of prayer and reflection, and it sounds
mm.
like you're experiencing that too.
Very true.
Mm.
Very true.
Is there anything else that's helping you spiritually or just in your life to get through this time?
Yeah, I think it's outside of the faith stuff. I think these connections that we are uh, maintaining or really reconnecting with folks. My wife and I both have large family diasporas.
Mm-hmm.
So we have people across the world who have migrated. So we have had several Zoom calls with people from really 5 continents. I have an uncle who celebrated his 85th birthday a couple weeks ago. We had a huge Zoom call. Then another aunt and uncle who celebrated their 50th anniversary on Saturday. And then we had, I think, 46 screens
Uh-huh.
connected on Zoom. And although, I'm zoomed out from work with several online hours of calls a day,
Uh-huh.
I look forward to these family calls and reconnecting with folks that I haven't physically seen in 15
Uh-huh.
years. I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for those opportunities. Um, so that's been good. And then the other thing, I think the other thing that I find particularly encouraging now is, one of my roles at Episcopal Relief and Development is helping partner Anglican churches across the world with humanitarian responses. And
Mm.
during this COVID time, I've been involved with several global humanitarian responses, and the church is really alive in bearing witness to Christ's love. Even though the buildings are closed, the church is really alive.
Mhm.
And looping back to where we met in South Sudan, the church there is, serving food and health and gender justice needs in several of the internally displaced camps.
Wow.
And these kinds of stories are really uplifting.
Mhm.
And we're making sure that we share some of this on our website, Episcopal Relief and Development's website. But I'm really inspired by that work that shows that Christ's love is not restricted to the building, and
Mhm.
so that's really been exciting.
Wow. That's really neat, Nagulan. Thanks for sharing that. I'll have to check out the Episcopal Relief and Development website.
Yeah,
to see some of those
Okay.
stories. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think whenever we're able to, I think to just to be reminded that that sort of the strength of Christian community is oftentimes in difficulty and in circumstances that we would think we wouldn't be able to meet, and yet here we are spread all over the world dealing with similar situations and struggles and finding ways to be siblings in Christ nonetheless, and to support those in need and come together. So
It is. It's absolutely it's a global crisis, and we've been convening some of these calls with church partners across the world. Um, and in some of those calls, we've heard, usually we have this mentality of the the northern hemisphere sort of helping or serving the southern hemisphere. And in these calls, we've seen how, at the present moment, the US is really sort of the epicenter of COVID.
mhm,
Seen how the prayer and support and the solidarity that the US church is getting from many of our Southern Hemisphere partners.
mhm,
And we are finding hope, and we are finding generosity from across the world, and we are really on in this time on an equal playing field, and that is something that we hope that will live beyond these COVID times.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, a changed perspective that
Mm.
kind of reorients us to each other in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your life in this moment. And I know the folks at my church are looking forward to meeting more of my friends and seeing more of these videos. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
when um, when travel restrictions ease, maybe a year from now, when I do make it back to the US, I'll
Yes.
maybe
Come,
drop by. I'll
come
drop
visit
by.
us in Napa. Yeah, absolutely. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nagulan.
All right. Thank you very much. God bless.
You too.